Hiya, I'm a Zamen, and I want to talk about fan games, cause we've all heard them. Plenty of franchises have them. You got examples like Five Nights at Freddy's, who's got a literal trove of fan games that can drown you. Same with Pokemon, unless you get banned. But one franchise that is kinda lacking when it comes to fan games is the Megami Tensei franchise. What I'm here to talk about is a little game called Megami Tensei Neuroheroine by James Hilton. A fan game that features an original story following a young woman who unravels a series of serial killings in the dystopian cyberpunk city of Neo Toledo. The game tells its own story by using art assets from the mainline SMT franchise. It also pulls demon and monster designs from Mach X, same with music and sound effects too. But what I find most interesting is that this game has combat. Turn-based combat. That might not sound like a big deal, but this game was made in Ren'Py. If you don't know, that's the game engine used to make visual novels, and turn-based combats ain't too common in a Ren'Py game. But this game has it, and it works. So if this little intro has piqued your interest, then I would recommend going out and playing the game yourself. I have a download link in my description, so go ahead and check it out. This game is like 4 hours at its longest and is pretty fun. Otherwise, stick around as I go over this game's mechanics, story, choices, and my overall thoughts on it. Now, without further ado, here is the Megami Tensei Neuroheroine experience. Booting up the game, we are greeted with a screen that reads Prologue, Vessel Birth. Here, an unknown narrator instructs us to name a young woman. The default name is Hiroko, a reference to the heroine from SMT2, but because I'm the one playing this game and this is a female protagonist, her name, by law, must be Sky. In order to give her personality and assign a few starting stats, the voice asks me, the player, a few questions which I try to answer honestly, telling them that I, controversially, would not want to be buried alive with my love, that I'd have a nightmare after witnessing a murder, that I would not perv on a corpse if I found them hot. And lastly, if I saw a terminally ill baby animal on the streets, then you better believe I try my hardest to take care of that little guy. From there, we assign a few starting stats, but for now, just know that I went for a mostly balanced spread with a small emphasis on speed. That will change greatly in the future. We are then given our starting equipment and dumped into the main game, being introduced to our main setting, Neo Toledo City, an island in the Pacific Ocean. As for the current state of the world, Sky explains to nobody in particular that the year is currently 20XX. 20 years ago, the Third World War began, resulting in nuclear annihilation that wiped out most major cities and reduced humanity to ruins, causing the near extinction of the human race. But naturally, we humans did survive, like the cockroaches we are, for the glory of humanity. But how did humans survive? Well, some, like Sky, just got lucky, while others, such as the world's elites, actually boarded spaceships that orbit Earth's atmosphere to escape the destruction. They are entirely self-sufficient and basically looked down, as politicians and big businesses tend to do. Also, you can see the spaceships from Earth. While they're up there, on Earth's surface we have the Regia Lunar Corporation, which I'll just call Lunar Corp for the rest of the video. They helped people survive by creating augmentation technology. And that means that they turn people into cyborgs. A lot of people started replacing their body parts with tech, because this tech was super cheap and affordable. All this augmentation led to a bit of a class divide. Those who went all the way and became more machine than man are called fused. Those who are less than 80% tech, but still tech, are called half-fused. And those who don't even have a single percent of tech, they are called unclean ones. Sky here is an unclean one, which means that she gets to live in poverty for not adapting to the times. People who are fused and no longer have any biological components are apparently given the privilege of living it up with the elite in the spaceships, which means that the only way to get a better life is to throw away your humanity. And that was true up until 3 weeks before this game starts, as multi-billionaire Francois something French announces that for the first time in history, an unclean one will be given the chance at moving up in the world, but only if they win a tournament. This tournament shall be conducted through a VR game called Devil Busters. where participants will be fighting demons and building up a score. Whoever gets the highest score earns a free ticket to the High Life. After all that exposition is out of the way, the scene cuts to our leading lady Sky finishing up with one of her clients, as she works as a, I'll just say, Lady of the Night. Truthfully, her occupation doesn't matter because it never comes up again after this intro. With her pay, Sky heads to the Evangelist's nightclub, which, okay, I have to mention this. The song playing in this nightclub, I hate it. I don't like it. I'm not a fan. I would play the song for you, but I'm pretty sure I would be shot by copyright again. And I do not want to have an Ishigami repeat. Just take my word for it, or don't. You might actually like the song if you play it. So, here in the nightclub, Sky chats up with her buddy, Aura, the owner of the nightclub, talking about this whole VR tournament. Aura thinks it's kinda sus because, well, it's a tournament where the poor literally are fighting for their lives. Oh, I didn't mention that part. You see, when the participant goes to play the game, they also get hooked up to a machine that will give them a heart attack if they die in the game. But, faced with that, our girl Sky is still reckless, saying that she'll just win every round, which is kinda based. But Aura here thinks that's pretty stupid and practically begs Sky to talk the idea over with two guys named Brian and Eddie. We'll see those guys later. Sky relents and says she'll do it and begins to leave. But before she leaves, Aura offers to tell us a joke. Why did Sally Walker die? She was doing deep throat with a runny nose. I don't get it. So we leave the funny man, and on the street, Sky decides to give Eddie a call, but he doesn't pick up, which is a little concerning because he hasn't been seen in 3 days. Sky briefly considers calling the police, but since she's an unclean one, the police aren't going to do anything about the crime. So the missing Eddie is entirely on her, and she resolves to start looking tomorrow. She'd start looking right now, but has something more important to do, that being to register for the tournament immediately. She goes there, meets Viola, and that's kinda, she leaves as soon as she walks in. Yeah, but she's registered, and then heads home to take care of her mother. Arriving home, her mom greets her with the phrase, "You look so good, daughter. When will we eat?" And this is a good time to bring up this game's grammar because it is not perfect. There is some janky writing structure in this game, and that mostly stems from the author not being a native English speaker. So if you're reading the text when it pops up, try not to get confused. Back to the game, Sky and her mother have kind of an awkward conversation that just feels like they're going through the motions. Which they are because Mom here has dementia. They are very much repeating this conversation. This dementia is why Sky wants to compete in this life or death tournament. If she wins and gets to go to the spaceships and live with the elite, then her mother will have access to medicine and treatment required to cure this affliction. With that, the day comes to an end and we are brought to this menu with a few options. From top to bottom, we got items and equipment, which is just using items and changing what sword we have equipped. Fairy Store is the shop where we can buy different swords, and real talk, of the swords here, the Hino Kagetsuchi is completely worthless. Get the Sword of Moonlight when you can, it's easily the best and most useful sword in the game. You can also buy healing items here like medicine, lifestones, and ailment healing items, but those are also useless and not worth it. Disfreeze is useless because when you get frozen, you literally can't use items, so you're never going to use this. Shock means that you drop money, and it's not that much money, so don't worry about it. Burn is kind of a problem, but not really, I'll explain later. When you first enter the shop, don't buy anything except for maybe a lifestone, but do not spend your money, you are going to regret it. From there, we can also go to the Coliseum to double some bust. Here we have a few options such as healing, which you need to do after every fight, and you can also change the battle music and battle backgrounds, which is cool. However, the battle music isn't very well balanced. Like Quest Battle from Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is incredibly loud, while Crazy Dancing Murder from SMTV is really quiet. Then we got check records, which just tells us how many enemies we've beaten and what people think of you. But for me, it always said that nobody could say a significant thing about Sky. She just like me for real. Alright, now I've been dancing around this for a while, so let's dive into this. We are going to click the Play Devil Buster Game button and be thrown into this screen. So, how exactly does the battle system of Megami Tensei Neuroheroine work? Now, most Megaten aficionados are going to be used to the usual batch of rough CBT with a sprinkling of humiliation while pressed up against the glass wall getting clapped. And I am proud to admit that this game does kinda slap you around and torture you. It's kinda like an old school Megaten game, a la Megaten 1 and 2 or the first two SMT games plus If. We've got a few simple, basic options like attack with the what noodle we call a sword, use a gun, which despite what the itch.io page might say, will literally be our main damage dealer. We can also negotiate and talk, but as I found out, it's kinda useless and not worth doing. The demon dialogue isn't even that funny, so ignore it. Its only real use is like disabling an element shield, but like, just shoot him, okay? As for the flow of the battles, it's pretty simple. You slap these demon PNGs until they die. Sky's starting sword is complete trash, so you should never swing it unless you're out of bullets. Instead, focus on your gun. It's an elemental gun, which allows you to shoot fire, ice, electric, or mind bullets at the cost of EP. Every demon you fight has a weakness, so just try every bullet until you hit the weakness. Because when you hit the demon's weakness, Sky's temporary speed rises. Speed is kinda king here, and we should use this opportunity to talk about how the stats on the right side of the screen work. From left to right, we got Int, which is useless. I never put a point into it because negotiating does not do anything for you. Endurance does not raise your defense or HP. All it does is up your chance of recovering from ailments sooner, and sometimes you have a chance to take less damage. It's a very small chance and not exactly reliable. It's never once procced during the long final battle for me, so yeah, it's not gonna really help you. Then there's luck, which is actually extremely good and very useful. This stat determines how much money you get from battles, and also how much stamina you recover, because stamina is what you use to swing your sword. If you have no stamina, no sword. And you should focus on this stat during the first 10 to 20 levels, because you're going to need the money. Then we have speed. Speed is king. When you have high speed, you get to act multiple times before the enemy can act. And in the everything after level 6, you need this, because enemies can do way more damage than you can dish out. Plus, in each fight, Sky is outnumbered 2 to 1. In each bout, we are taking on 2 demons at a time. But we also have one more secret weapon up Sky's sleeve. That being save states. Remember, this game was made in Renpai, so you can save at any point, even in combat. And you're going to need this to get good odds on the attacks the enemy uses, because otherwise you are going to be hit back to back with attacks that deal 25 to 40 damage and can kill you in 2 shots again and again. The hardest parts of this game are getting from level 1 to level 30. That is the rough parts. Past those, you'll be breezing through everything after you focus on speed and luck. Now, you might be wondering, how essential are these battles? Very. This game will stop you from progressing if you aren't a certain level, and you level up after each fight, so you'll have to fight at least 50 battles if you want to reach the game's ending. For the most part, I'm going to skip over all the combat because, well, I did all the Coliseum fights in 2 big grind sessions, while catching up on Amazon's The Boys, so I kinda zoned out during the CBT grinding sesh. But maybe I should make a video on The Boys. Idea for later. Anyway, we win a couple arena battles and decide to head back to the menu and hit that button that says Story. Greeting us with Chapter 1, Serial Killer. Sky arrives at Club Evangelist to chat her buddy Aura and pick up some coffee, because now she intends to look into the disappearance of Eddie. However, that search is a little too late because Eddie is already dead. The police found his body in an alleyway, very brutally mutilated. They were apparently tortured, and according to Aura, he was most likely killed with a very sharp iron object. A knife, most likely. Look, I am going to point out how awkward these lines are from time to time. They sound silly, unnatural, and are very entertaining. Speaking of unnatural things, Eddie's heart is also missing. Now that would normally spark a police investigation, but since Eddie is a fellow unclean one, the police do not care and do not look into it any further. Hearing this, we the players are presented with a choice. How does Sky respond? Is she pessimistic or optimistic? Me being me, I optimistically have Sky declare that she will find the killer, which Aura is super excited about. I guess he wanted us to do this from the start. So with Aura's blessing, Sky heads out to find her buddy Brian, because he can help her gather intels. Now Brian here, he looks like a man who would hook up people to some kind of artificial dream as they slowly wither and die in the real world. But we do not judge a book by its cover, because he's kinda our broski for this entire adventure. Dude is fully fused, but he's an elite hacker. And combine that with him having a love for mint gum, that makes him kinda based. Quickly he reveals that our now deceased Eddie is actually the third in a string of serial murders that are just not being investigated. The common denominator in these murders are that the targets are all gay men who happen to be found with organs missing near nightclubs. Sky actually knows these nightclubs and points out that all of them are in the same block, which allows Brian to triangulate the murders, and gives Sky a place to start her investigation. Though before she heads out, Sky does ask Brian to look into that Francois, the guy behind the Devil Buster tournament. Arriving at the alley, Sky finds what looks like a saint, a devil summoner, and the Prime Minister of Japan. But that's not important. She questions them on if they saw anything suspicious, gradually building up a description of the killer and then being led to an imprint of the killer's crisp Jordans. It's honestly pretty fun investigating. I like slowly getting new bits of info from each testimony that you then cross-reference to discover something new. With this new evidence, Sky sends it over to Brian, who says he'll scour the databases of Neo Toledo City for anyone who matches the description, and see if anyone else bought a pair of Jordans, a process that will take a few days. So, job complete, Sky heads back to her home, and what the Yeah, so while walking back, Sky bumps into a copy of herself. Naturally, Sky demands the copy explain who the hell she is. The copy introduces herself as Royal Sun. She also says that a grand performance, the Century Sacrament, has begun, and claims to be Sky in perfect shape. With a snap of her fingers, she paralyzes Sky, which is the only use of the bind status in this game. After that, she implores Sky to reach the top of the tournament and says, "See ya later, Podo." She vanishes. Just vanishes. Now, Podo is apparently Sky's childhood nickname. And looking at her, I can see why. So this copy clearly knows a lot about Sky, and has some interest in the tournament. Sky ponders it for a hot minute, but decides to just go home and use up her free time. She has 3 options, 2 of which are useless. Working at Evangelista is literally pointless. $1,000 is nothing. You get more from battles if you've been pumping up your luck stat, so don't do it. Then there's study literature, which can up your int, but int is worthless, so don't. Instead, you're gonna want to meditate, because that lowers your stress, and if your stress gets too high, then our Sky here shall die. I should probably also mention what those other stats on the side do. Sanity, stress, lust, and morale. Listen, I have no idea what sanity and lust do. They never increased when I played the game, and they were never relevant. Pretend they don't exist. Morale is interesting. It's kind of like our alignment and determines whether Sky is lawful, chaotic, or neutral, which does affect the ending. The choices Sky makes cause this to rise and lower, and I'll mention it when we get to big choices. So Sky meditates, de-stresses, and then heads back home where she repeats a conversation with her mom, in a sequence that only gets more depressing each time we come back, bringing the day to a close. The next day, we hit the story button, and Sky is now at the funeral for Eddie, who is being buried with his favorite stiletto heels. It's a pretty sad scene, actually. Once the funeral ends, Sky heads back to Brian's hideout to see what he's discovered, and thanks to the shoe imprint Sky found, it's apparently a fairly recent model. Only a few people actually have them, that number being 3,000, which is still a few too many people. Making matters worse, half-fused people are starting to disappear by the dozen. The killer is racking up a pretty high body count. So plans have to shift, and Brian suggests that we try baiting out the killer into a very populated area with plenty of cameras. They talk over a plan, but before Sky leaves, Brian offers her some memory enhancers, a bit of tech that can help Sky's mother fight against her dementia. It should strengthen her memory. However, Sky is hesitant to make use of these because she reveals that her father was a lead researcher at Lunar Corp, the big company responsible for all the cyber tech. While he did design a bunch of cutting-edge tech, it eventually became his downfall because 3 years ago, all of his augmentation caused him to suffer a neural overload, basically a tech-induced mental breakdown that resulted in him taking a knife and butchering himself. Sky kinda sorta walked in when he was finishing up, and that's why Sky chooses to remain as an unclean one. She doesn't trust the tech. Regardless, she does take the memory enhancers after Brian points out that neural overloads only occur 2% of the time now. With that, Sky heads out to bait the killer into a populated area, which, is a complete failure. Like, Sky is not at all his target demographic. We were not selling blood to a vampire, we were selling meat to a vegetarian. Although Sky only tries for 20 minutes, which doesn't seem like a lot of time. So Brian calls off the mission and Sky heads to the store that sells swords and bullets to buy some medicine for her mom. As she approaches, she hears a weird noise and sees the store owner, Trish, climb out of a secret door to the basement. Sky tries to question Trish, but Trish here is an expert at gaslighting, gatekeeping, and girl bossing, so Sky gives up. Arriving home, medicine in hand, Sky repeats the same conversation with her mother, and I, the player, am given a choice. Do I have Sky compromise her values and inject her mother with the memory enhancers, or do I stick to those values by not curing this woman's dementia? After some thought, I choose to stick to Sky's values, and that lowered my morale, which does make sense. I am denying crucial life-altering medicine after all. Which brings the day to a close. And then, because I hate myself, I proceeded to grind out a few more Coliseum battles. As you can see, I am level 12 with my endurance and luck being rather high, while speed is a bit neglected, which is stupid and wrong. You see, at this point I was under the impression that endurance would up my defense, but, like I said, it does not do that. So the grind from 12 to 20-ish was brutal, especially since I never bought healing items. But the grind happened, I hit the gritty, and then hit the story button. Sky gets an urgent voice call from Brian, and beelines it for his hideout, where he reveals some pretty unusual stuff. For starters, that billionaire Francois, he's dead. He's been dead for a few years at this point, but his appearance and voice were sold after his death, meaning that whoever started the tournament is using AI to puppet that guy's likeness in order to advertise the event. The body seen in the advert was a copy, in the same way that Sky has a copy that we saw 2 chapters ago. Furthermore, it turns out that the one who bought Francois' likeness was Lunar Corp. And they're the only ones who could ever make these copies. Sky asks if Brian could hack into Lunar Corp servers to see if they can learn anything else about her copy, or even Francois' copy, but Lunar Corp security is just impenetrable. But even if it is impossible, Brian, being the bro sighting he is, says that he'll look into it later because right now there's something more pressing. 2 hours ago, his camera spotted Trish, the store owner, carrying a dead body. So Sky assumes she must be an accomplice. And without further hesitation, Sky kicks down the door to her shop and threatens Trish, saying she killed 3 people. But Trish pleads that she killed not people. And this next part feels random and irrelevant, so I'll just speed through it. You see, Trish doesn't kill people. She destroys androids from failing stores that get shut down, because that's part of her job, since her store belongs to a chain run by Lunar Corp. And that's just something that Lunar Corp orders the high-performing stores to do, for some reason. It's never explained why. We, the player, are then given the choice to turn her over to the police, or say nothing. I choose to say nothing because we have already established that the police won't do anything for Sky since she is an unclean one. And this choice makes my moral go down. Again. So Sky leaves and instantly gets a call from Brian, who reveals that his cameras have located the killer, and he thinks he's pinpointed the killer's hideout. So Sky's off. She enters an abandoned building, makes her way to the upper floor after solving a small passcode puzzle, and comes face to face with the murderer, revealing that he's just a simp. This guy apparently killed all 3 of those people because they didn't love him. He ripped out their organs as a kind of poetic justice. I get the choice on what to do with him and decide to just shoot him, which again lowers my morale. However, as the killer dies, he calls us a fool and says that he was forced to do it. But before I can say who, he dies. Now, I reloaded this part to see what happens if Sky spares him, and yeah, no, he still dies, except in that version, he does it himself. Still calls us a fool though. But that reveals that his actions are literally being controlled by an outside force. Either way, I reload back to the world where I shot him, and then I, the player, am given another choice. Do I take Eddie's heart that the killer has, or do I just leave it here? I decide to have Sky shove it in her pocket. Sky heads home, repeats the conversation with her mom, and the day comes to an end. Now, I tried to hit the story button, but I'm not allowed to because I need to be level 30 in order to access it. So I dragged myself back to the Coliseum to grind out some battles. And the level 20 to 30 battles are easily the hardest part of this game. The enemies can do nearly half your HP and damage if you aren't lucky, so save scumming really is the only way to win. Plus, there are enemies who resist sword, which means you can't deal big damage to them because they just nullify your attack. And there's no way around that, other than just doing low gun damage. So we're just gonna skip over to when I'm sufficiently leveled. And we're back. As you can see, I am now level 52. I decided to get the grinding out of the way because the lady at the Coliseum said the level cap was 55. I can now hit the story button, and this next chapter is pretty bare. Like, it's a transition chapter. Sky runs into her copy again, but nothing happens other than this absolutely goated line. What do you think I am? Some kind of artificial goddess? Which just comes out of nowhere and made me laugh so hard. And then she just kinda taunts Sky, says she'll suffer, and dips. Also, I don't know where to put this, but in this chapter there's a part where Aura just trauma dumps on Sky without any prompting whatsoever. It's extremely unnatural, out of place, and I really don't think we need to hear about how Aura's father killed his mother through AE asphyxiation. I just had to mention that, okay? Anyway, Sky heads to Brian's hideout. They talk about how they need to look into Lunar Core, but they can't hack it remotely, so it's gotta be analog. So Brian sends Sky undercover as a server cleaner, and while she's doing that, she swipes a memory device and brings it back to him. It'll take some time to decode, so Sky goes home and arrives at an empty apartment. Her mom's gone. It must have been the copy. And the day comes to an end. Speeding right on through, we hit the story button. Sky is naturally pretty livid that her mom got mom-napped, but she's still got a job to do, so she heads back to Brian's place, and there's this little subplot about the memory thing needing a passcode. So Sky heads home, finds a passcode decoder among her dad's dead things. We bring it back to Brian, and he decodes the memory thing. If you can't tell, this part and the last chapter are still in transition. But what's on the memory thing is utterly mind-blowing because it contains blueprints for a realistic 3D outdoor projection device. And what is this device intended to project? Spaceships. The elites aren't alive. They aren't living it up in spaceships in Earth's atmosphere. They're dead. Because according to Brian, all the bunkers where the elite could have been hiding out before the nukes went off, those were bombed day before. The elite have been dead for the past 20 years. Which means the tournament where I spent hours grinding away was a complete sham. But the biggest reveal is that Lunar Corp, Regalia Lunar Corporation, does not exist. It's just a complex AI controlling androids. There's no human element whatsoever, because the human element died 3 years ago. Sky's father, he was the creator of the Lunar Corp AI. With that bombshell, Sky is furious and heads back to the Coliseum to demand answers from the woman who runs it. And Sky just straight up pulls out a gun and threatens to blow the woman's brains out, which is extremely persuasive. and the woman admits that this tournament is a complete sham. Hell, the only participant is Sky. No one else is allowed to participate. There's no online broadcast. It's just Sky. This whole sham was conducted by Royal Sun Corporation. Royal Sun being what Sky's copy wanted to be called. With all that info, Sky decides to just let the woman live and leaves. But to top all of that off, Sky gets a phone call, which informs her that her buddy, Aura, just hanged himself. So, I guess all that trauma dumping he did earlier might have been a call for help. However, Sky doesn't think that. Instead, she's pretty sure the copy did this and swears SMT vengeance on her. From here, there's only one chapter left. So I stocked up on a bunch of medicine, every sort in the game, except the Hino Kakatsuchi because that one sucks. And with all our preparations in order, we hit the story button for the final time, being greeted with Chapter 6, Century Sacrament. And I guess Chapter 1 ended at some point too. Sky scours the city for her copy. When she finds her, the copy decides that now that Sky has suffered long enough, she will reveal everything. She reveals that Sky's father built two AIs, Royal Moon and Royal Sun. Royal Moon became Regalia Lunar Corporation, but Royal Sun, that's the copy. She's an advanced AI modeled after the creator's daughter, a perfect image of Sky. At the start of the game, when we gave the vessel a name, we were naming the copy, I think. I'm not sure, but there's a non-zero chance that that's supposed to be part of this reveal. Furthermore, this Royal Sun, our copy, I'll call her Royal Sun going forward, Royal Sun also admits that she has the power to control any person who has augmented themselves. That's why the serial killer said he was forced to kill. That's why Sky found her father dead. Royal Sun killed him after becoming self-aware. While the lunar AI was given parameters to fulfill, which is how it's perpetuated the farce of the elite being alive in spaceships, Royal Sun here has no such parameters. She has no limitations. She can act as it sees fit, and it wanted to remove anything that could be a threat to it. Sky's father, obviously, but also Sky herself. The reason that makes Sky dangerous is that Royal Sun can't hurt Sky directly, and she can't take control of Sky because Sky's an unclean one, a person who refuses all augmentation. Wait, I thought the point was that Royal Sun had no limit. Shut the fuck up! I mean, this inability to kill Sky drove the AI mad, so it started this whole production to make Sky suffer. But also, at the same time, Royal Sun was looking into demonology and found a way to break past the one limit of hers through this thing called the Century Sacrament, a ritual that can turn people into demons. And she has been making use of it to turn people into demons. A lot of half-fused people. And hey, remember at the start when I said that half these peeps were going missing? And where have we been seeing demons? You don't think? Yeah, it's exactly what you think. The freaking sham of a Colosseum was also lying about being VR. Those were real demons that Sky has been mowing down, and every single one of those demons was a person. And get this, that's only the first part of the Century Sacrament, because the end goal of this ritual is to open a gate to the realm of demons and grant the summoner incredible power. And to reach that end goal, it requires 100 human sacrifices. Suddenly, the ground beneath Sky begins to shake as screams echo out. The sky is filled with flames, people across Neo Talato start turning into demons. Sky demands to know what's going on, calling Royal Sun insane. But Royal Sun retorts that Sky herself is insane, because the performer of the Century Sacrament was none other than Sky herself. Like we just said, the Colosseum. Sky is level 52. That means she's killed 104 demons, because every level gained is a single fight against 2 demons, 2 people. Sky murdered 104 people, all without knowing that it led to this new Shin SMT4 Apocalypse. Okay, I'll stop. But it's not only that, because Royal Sun goes on, saying how Sky killed an innocent man who had no control of his actions, and she also points out that Sky is carrying the rotten heart of Eddie in her back pocket. So I'll kind of agree with Royal Sun on that part with the hearts, because in her own words, Sky, you are completely f***ed up person, not me. Or should I call you neutral goddess? Okay, listen, I am a patient person, but what does that mean? Like, why? Why would she call Sky neutral goddess? It's so out of left field, and it's so goddamn funny. Like, oh my god, this is a good game, this is an amazing game. Ahem. Anyway. Royal Sun drags Mama Sky out, turns her into a demon, and then Royal Sun digivolves into the Will of Neutrality, apparently. Starting the game's final fight. Now this last fight is balls to the wall, sick nasty, and most surprisingly, actually really fun. I was having a good time in this fight. I felt like I had to strategize because this fight is tough, but fair. Like all battles, it's against two enemies, and like the hero of SMT1, we gotta put down our mom. Target her first because she has the ability to heal the Will of Neutrality once it gets below half health, each time, without fail. Trust me, I tried to kill the Will of Neutrality first, and it wasn't impossible, so sorry, no saving mom. For this fight, you're gonna want to use the Sword of Moonlight, because every time it's a full moon, you can deal 50 hype damage. Focus fire moms, and when she goes down, start hitting the skip button to recover stamina, because you cannot rely on your gun to finish this fight, because once you get the Will of Neutrality down to like a third of its health, it turns the fight into a DPS race, by hitting Sky with a status ailment that will kill her in 6 turns, unless the Will of Neutrality dies first. Now first attempt didn't go well because this happened. I was so damn close, I was so close. Like, it's gotta have a single health left after that because the bar looks empty, I am not crazy here. So attempt 2, it goes way better, and Sky, with her trusty Blade of Moonlight, cuts down Royal Sun, killing it for good. From there, we get one final scene, as Sky reflects on this journey. She won, but at what cost? Eddie is still dead. Aura is dead. Her mom is dead. She killed over 100 people. And demons are now running rampant through Neo-Toledo City. But Sky, she won't take this lying down. In memory of everyone who died, she declares, I must become the one to lead everyone to salvation. The Messiah. Cue credits, and I am awarded the title of Neutral Goddess. Now, this ending disappointed me because I really wanted Sky to say, I must become the Megami Tensei Neuroheroine. But that really is the end. And that's the neutral ending. I'm pretty sure there's a law and a chaos ending too. I'm not going to go back and play it because I don't have any save files before this, and I don't feel like going back and replaying this for the grinding. So yeah, that's the game. For all its flaws and the ball-crushing grinding it put me through, I really enjoyed it. It was fun. The writing is pretty silly and kind of bizarre, with a few things that just kind of happened. There's also a couple plot holes and inconsistencies. So does that mean Sky's dad was in charge of perpetuating the lie of the elite being alive for some reason? I'm not really sure. But that twist where Sky killed 100 people was kinda based. I was also genuinely shocked by the ending, because it's so rare for a story to end on a downer like the demon apocalypse has begun, it's your fault nerd, oof lamau, get ratioed, etc. But that does lead into this game's sequel, 2 sequels actually, which I might play and review at a later time. Also, the combat was passable. I didn't really hate it that much. And I actually really liked all the investigating. The investigating detective moments were really fun, I enjoyed that. So I'd recommend that anyone who has like an 8th grade reading level should give this game a crack, but also only if you happen to enjoy early Megaten games. But this has been the Megami Tensei Neuroheroine experience. Pretty based. Ahem, now that the video's properly over, hiya, I'm a Zamen, and yeah, this video is kind of a bit of a spoof, homage, influenced by Marsh's videos on Megaten games. I found this game while I was in a bit of a stint of rewatching his videos, so I kind of felt like doing this. It was fun. It's not in poor taste, I promise. I'm a fan. Either way, I have been a Zamen, and thank you very much for watching this video. And consider sticking around if you don't hate my voice. My sole goal is to improve my writing, editing, and speaking as I go on. Goodbye.
How will history judge?